Hello everyone. Today I want to show you just very quickly how you can cover this very little bottle, and it is literally only about 2 inches tall, probably about 2.5 with the actual lid as well, in some cane. And this is just a cane that I've made a while ago, and it's been sat for a little bit, and I just thought it'd be quite nice to see how I can cover this. So I'm just going to literally start by putting the pieces on and matching them as best I can as far as the pattern. And sometimes which way you put the cane will determine which is the best way to do this. Now I've cut these without the aid of any kind of slicer, I've just done it with a knife, so some may be slightly thicker than the other, but we can sort that one out. So as you can see, this is going on quite easily and quite nicely. You might notice that there's a little bit of a difference in the height, but we can soon work that one out. Now this space here is obviously a little bit too big. If I can pick it up, it's obviously a little bit too big for my actual piece of cane, but there is a way around that, and the easiest thing to do, just make sure that it's down on your work surface and just gently start easing it in. And you don't have to push it too hard because you don't want to distort it. Now this one has got a slightly thinner edge here, so I do need to be a bit careful, but just try and ease it in, and you can start to sort of gauge just how much you need to do this. And it's just really about manipulating the clay to suit your purposes rather than the clay dictating what you can do. So this way you can actually fit a piece, and hopefully that'll work. Looks like that will go in there. I'll just take the knife away, and then I'm just going to ease one side in first, and you may find that you just need to pull it away a little bit and sort of gradually bring it up to that piece, and then that will nicely sit next to that piece there. And once I'm all finished, I will obviously work my way around and just make sure that everything's nice and flat. But it really just goes to show that you don't have to. Now I can notice that there's a little bit of a gap at the top. Now I could go this way and see whether that makes a bit of a difference, and by the look of it, it looks like it might be a bit better. So I'm going to try and put them on. Although they are really sort of square, they are slightly rectangular, which gives them a little bit more length one way than the other. I'm just going to slowly work these in. And it really doesn't have to take too long. It's just about being steady-handed as such and just manipulating it so as you can get to each piece to work for you. And like I say, I've got some high spots there, but we can soon work that one out. I'm just going to make sure that this one will fit. And it looks like that one actually might fit because it's slightly shorter one side. So there's a bit of a gap there, but don't worry. We can work that out. And that has just come away slightly at the top where it's a bit thinner. But this really is just about slowly working the clay to suit your piece, as opposed to the clay telling you what you can do. So I'm just going to slowly work this together, and it really is just a case of very gently manipulating the clay into place, and that may mean moving it in other areas. I can also use a little tool here, and this is part of the cane bender set. Very useful for this, and you can get these from tinypandora.com. I can put a link below, and they really do help, and you just slowly work the pieces together. And I haven't put anything on this glass to adhere this clay to. It will stick to itself as such, and it will stick on the clay. Now you may want to go a little bit higher, and you can just gently work your clay up. And like I say, there's a little bit of a high spot there. I will aim to get that off. And sometimes what I do with these little jars, just to help the adhesion, is I just roll them on my work surface, just gently, nothing too strenuous, just to see whether it's going to help me just a little bit. And I'm not too worried if there is a bit of a high spot on it, to be fair, because it is just a little jar. and it looks a little bit like it's been sort of covered with tiles, which it has. Now if you're really not happy with anything that does tend to sort of stick up a bit much, you can just very carefully shave off, and this is really just a case of gently removing a little bit of the clay. It's really not very much, and it will just help with the actual height that you're getting. And then you can roll it again. And this way, it's not only is it helping you to obviously adhere the piece and making sure you've got nice clean joins. It always pays to just go round and just make sure that they are all joined up. And any little bits that you just need to tidy up, you can do with your knife or a craft knife. And then I just make sure that the edges just sort of taken in a little bit, tapered in a bit, just so as it keeps them nice and neat. And I can see that little piece there, so I'm just going to push that down and see if I can't bring up the other side to try and even it out. Make sure that the bottom is the same. Anything that looks a little bit uneven, or maybe you need to just take a very small slice off just to make sure that it's... But basically that's it. Now what you do with this afterwards, in the sense of any kind of covering, whether you want to put a varnish on it or a brush on resin, is entirely up to you. I actually quite like that look of the sort of matte finish with these particular little bottles, and I always make sure that my lid's going to go on quite securely so you've got very little of the glass showing, and they're just a nice little trinket really. So that will now go into the oven, and put that in for about 30 minutes because it really doesn't need a lot more than that, but you could put it in for longer, but just make sure you tent your piece. And I'll put that in at the recommended glaze temperature, which I believe is 275 for this, but always check your packet. And I'll show you some more that I've made. I'll just pause this for a second because you don't want to see me walking across the room. Okay, so these are just a few more that I'd already covered with different canes, and what's great is because they really don't take much cane. If you've got sort of like an inch or so left of a piece of cane and you don't know what to do with it, then they're great for doing things like that. Obviously I bought some of these bottles from that famous jungle, I call it, place in the on the internet, but you know, you can cover anything you like really. I mean, I'm always covering glass bottles or little boxes, but it's really just to show you that it really doesn't have to be hard. And it's just about having a bit of patience when you're putting it together and just slowly putting the pieces on. You can measure it. You can also put the pieces of clay onto another piece of clay if you want and use it as a slab. I just tend to find that I find it easier to put them on piece by piece. In certain cases I just find that then I can manipulate each piece if I need to. So have some fun, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I shall see you again soon.